What's up, people? As you can see, my room is more organized a little bit, and there's a TV there, although I don't use it. I hung up some religious stuff. I'm Muslim and whatnot. But anyway, that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is I wanted to talk about addiction, and more specifically, porn addiction and recovery, and what that looks like, what that could look like for you or for anyone who's watching this. So, I've talked about this briefly in other videos, but this is one of my issues. This is something I've struggled with for a long time. And I would always tell myself that it's not a big deal, that it's only affecting me, it's only impacting me. And you know what? If that's the trade off, I'll deal with it, right? Because it's so difficult to overcome. These lustful thoughts, and it's a lot. And especially living here in this city in Los Angeles. You can't. It's to the point, even in society in general. You can live anywhere, but especially here. You'll go to the beach or you'll go anywhere, and like there's just half naked women everywhere. I mean, literally in the place that we lived when I was staying in, I believe, Hollywood. With my brother, we had an Airbnb one of the first few months we were out here. There's billboards, literal billboards of basically naked women. And for somebody who is dealing with any addiction, but more specifically pornography addiction, it's like you're seeing triggers for your urges everywhere. And it's in film. As somebody who's an actor who's trying to pursue that, as somebody who's trying to be a filmmaker, it's in TV, it's everywhere. Sex sells. There's a reason why that's a thing, that's a phrase, because it's true. And as somebody who grew up Muslim, but I feel like didn't really understand how to be culturally Muslim necessarily, obviously praying and stuff, but just like, I feel like Muslim is more than just praying, obviously, and knowing some surahs of the Quran. Like it's a lifestyle in which you live by. It's a rule of life. And an important thing that I feel like young men aren't taught, and I'm sorry to bring religion into it, obviously, if you're watching this and you're non-religious, I think this applies to people outside of religion. Hear me out. It's this idea that as a man, when you're approaching any lady, is to lower your gaze, just the whole act of being respectful, looking down, it's one of those things where you're not, even when you look at somebody in their eyes, it's like with the way people are dressed nowadays in society, you'll see some in your peripheral view, like people just barely wearing anything, cleavage, people wearing clothes that are very tight-fitting, form-fitting, people wearing no bras, so like you see nipple and everything, it, for somebody who's dealing with that kind of addiction, it's like those things for people can be triggers. So simply stepping outside sometimes, when it used to be like a solution to things, it's like outside can be the worst trigger of all time. But it's a lot of it is mindset, y'all, and it's the way you approach things. And I think I was watching a video today where this imam was talking about, I guess it's a popular question of whether or not masturbation is prohibited in Islam. And he said in the video that, I guess, how do I paraphrase it? The only way a man or a woman should please themselves is with their spouses or with what their right hand possesses. And a lot of people can take that and misinterpret it different ways. Right hand, what does that mean? You can take it very literally, like, oh, so I could just jerk off with my right hand. Like, no, bro, chill out. That's not what it means. And it's funny to say, but like, even I kind of thought that a little bit. And he also mentioned this, which is pretty interesting in the video, is the idea that when people are looking for something, like when you're an addict, right, and you're dealing with urges or whatever, And let's say you're feeling a little bit of guilt and shame, and so before you do whatever, you're looking up, is it haram or whatever, should I do this? You'll see a lot of scholars say no, it's not. But then you'll see a few people that are like, actually, yeah, because it's a highly debated subject. So of course there's gonna be people who are on both sides of the spectrum or whatever of the answers. And I guess a lot of it is like how people interpret it, the Quran for themselves. And a lot of it came from like, because there's no specific ruling on masturbation in general, like specifically, um, but it's implied. So basically, what it means, without yapping too much, is it's another phrase for spouse. What your right hand possesses. In the Quran, a lot of people used to take it for, slaves or whatnot. The idea of possession. But really, what it means is, and when you translate it to today's obviously way of living, it just means somebody who you're married to, somebody who, excuse me, in that sense, there's ownership, right? Obviously, as men, you don't own your wives. As wives, you don't own your husbands. But it's just this idea of like, okay, these two are like, what's the word? They're like together, almost like in like a marriage contract in that sense. You two are exclusive kind of thing, right? I don't know if I'm articulating it correctly, but basically it's like, dude, only with your spouses. So if you're a young man and you're not married, don't. And the thing you should be doing is fasting. So I don't know if you guys know this if you're not Muslim. The idea of fasting is to abstain from just really just most media. I don't even think really you're supposed to be watching films or TV or anything like that. But just for somebody starting out, you start off small. So like avoiding music, which a lot of people would be like, "What?" I was like that initially. Avoiding, inappropriate stuff, inappropriate films, all that. If you have habits like drinking, smoking, avoiding that. A lot of it is, people, when you think of fasting, it's like no food or drinking, but it's a lot more than that. It's abstaining from negative things that would pull you away from God. And so, yeah, just, I would say you don't have to starve necessarily. Um, but with regards to like pornography, you should just fast from that. Abstain from that act. That includes everything that's associated with masturbation, with looking over images that make you lustful, the whole nine. Um, and another issue where I think a lot of men struggle with this, right? And we're always looking for something. My main point was he was saying a lot of people will look for things that justify what they want to hear. So if you're an addict, you would want to hear, okay, it's okay to masturbate, because then that gives you an out and like an easy way out to do something to which obviously deep down you shouldn't be doing, but whatever. Right? You're looking for something to back your worldview at that point in time that is flawed. But I mean, it's a lot of it, especially when it comes to marriage, has to do with the way society is nowadays, the way the economy is. It's I think we're living in a world where I think we're seeing less and less people getting married young, and obviously it's for practical reasons, but it's just like marriage isn't what it used to be back in the day, and yet we still feel certain social and societal pressures, whether it be from our family, from ourselves, from just the way we grew up, the things we internalized, things we see in films and TV. I didn't get into my first like relationship talking to somebody until I was like 24, 25. I think I was 25, right? And to me, I kind of felt like I was super far behind in that aspect. And the thing is, a lot of us, when we're living in today's kind of day and age, we're prioritizing like things in order to get ourselves in a position where we could be like, hey, I don't have to worry about myself. I could provide for family, right? So you're thinking about things like career. You're thinking about things like bettering yourself, right? Just all this stuff. And it's a good thing. You're putting yourself in a great position, right? Theoretically speaking, right? But it's just this idea of the way the economy is, the way the world is nowadays, the way all these pressures you feel, it's like, who would want to get married in today's world? I could barely take care of myself. 26-year-old right now, right? I could barely take care of myself. And you're telling me I have to be able to provide for somebody else and potentially have a family? What? You know how expensive it is to have a kid in this current day and age? There are people who, like, I've seen talk about, like, I was thinking about having a second child, and then because of the way the economy is, I'm just not, my child's just going to be an only child. That is so sad, but that's like the reality we're living in. So when we're dealing with this and we're dealing with the fact that young people aren't getting married anymore, and so you're dealing with a lot of people who are dealing with more loneliness, people who have, more like isolation. Um, there's a lot more people who are dealing with this kind of issue. It's not just you and me, It's one of those things where you gotta just kind of learn to give yourself grace. You know, and obviously also like the flawed thinking of getting married is going to get rid of your addiction. That's not it. It's a lot of stuff that you kind of, you know a lot of habits that are deeply wired into your brain that you need to learn how to unwire certain things. Getting married is not going to solve it. If anything, you're going to be projecting your issues and your urges onto somebody else, which are, quite unhealthy right now. So instead of thinking about getting married as a solution, I think we should think of what is it that we want to accomplish in our lives. Is this something that's detracting from it? Is this something that's keeping me further away or closer to where I want to be? And if you're a religious person, is it keeping me further away or closer to God? Is it making me feel good about myself, or do I feel worse? Try to go without it. If you're a person who hasn't obviously tried stopping, try going without it for a day, which is going to be difficult in the beginning to go a full 24 hours without. Trust me. It was one of the hardest things I've had to do when I was trying to overcome it, and I still am. I'm still working on it, but go a day, right? And you're going to feel uncomfortable, you're going to feel anxious, you're going to feel whatever. But just do that a couple of times, you know? You'll notice you'll start to feel a lot more free, a lot more happy, a lot less stressed. I've noticed for myself, as somebody who's an actor, I feel a lot more free. I feel a lot funnier. I feel a lot more social. I feel a lot more mature when I'm, you know, not doing that. I feel a lot less tired, a lot less lethargic, a lot less anxious and depressed. But most importantly, I feel a lot more motivated to keep going. The guilt and shame aspect really isn't there. You know, that's not a good feeling to have. I was gonna say something else, but I'm forgetting. I'm trying to make sure this video is kind of like going smooth. Fuck, there's something I was gonna say. I guess the main thing is I just feel like I'm overall a better person, even though I feel more anxious a little bit at times. Um, it's just one of those things where you have to learn not to hyper focus on certain things. Um, Learn to distract yourself, and learn not to take life too seriously sometimes, because that's sometimes why you can be too hard on yourself. But that's all I'll say. Peace.